One morning, you wake up and find her food still in the bowl. You search the house but can't find her. It feels strange because she isn't the type to run away or anything like that. Until finally you see that your cat is isolating herself, hiding under the bed so you won't see her and avoiding eye contact. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? What's happening to her? Until an even more terrifying question arises. Does my cat know what's happening to her? Is she afraid? Is she in pain? Did I do enough? For a long time, it's been believed that when cats are about to die, they tend to wander off or enter a stage of anxiety. But that's not exactly the case. The truth is, you know very little about your pets. This video is going to be a bit different from the rest because you are looking at something deeper. The final days of your beloved pets. But you should understand that this isn't dark or sad. Rather, from a psychological perspective, it's actually quite comforting. Your cat doesn't know she's dying, but she knows that something important, something much more significant, is going to happen to her. Something that might mean never seeing each other again. Answering the question, do your cats actually know they are going to cross the Rainbow Bridge? The answer isn't as simple as yes or no. In 2021, a philosopher named Susana Monso from the University of Madrid in Spain published a study in a journal called Erkentis. In it, she proposed an idea that shifted the perception of many scientists, explaining that among many species, cats possess a minimal concept of death. However, having a concept of death is difficult. It's not the same as having a perception of it, let alone one's own. Humans are the only species that think about what happens after you exist. Other species lack that specific reasoning. They don't think deeply about what comes next. What they do instead is something more immediate, and in its own way, more honest. They feel that their bodies no longer respond the way they used to, that jumps are harder, that their appetite has changed. But the most interesting part of the case is they can smell it. It's no secret that cats have a superpower. But when it comes to scent, thanks to their 200 million olfactory receptors, there's a common urban legend about how they can smell cancer. A legend that is entirely true. In California, 5 ordinary household cats were trained to detect lung cancer in samples on human breath. The results show 99% accuracy. A 2024 study at the Penn Vet Working Dog Center showed that animals can detect cancer in the saliva of other animals with 90% sensitivity. This means that, logically, they were able to smell cancer. They were constantly analyzing their own chemical signature, from their own scent to every breath they take, detecting compounds and everything going on inside them. They have the ability to detect when something is failing. Understanding all of this, you can see how cats are essentially beings that can sense when something is wrong. When that happens, and most of you have been in this situation, they either start to distance themselves, hiding in corners or under the bed, or they do the exact opposite and develop an incredibly strong attachment to you. Most people interpret the former as sadness and the latter as love. However, science has an answer that is more interesting and even more moving. In 1988, Benjamin Hart, from the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, published a paper that became fundamental to understanding sick animals. He demonstrated that isolation, loss of appetite, increased sleep, and social withdrawal are not signs of giving up. They are evolutionary traits inherited through centuries of growth. They aren't in a state of depression. Instead, they shut down all of their emotions. They are in a state of mental and physical activity to focus all their energy on fighting the illness. Hart called this the animal's total effort to overcome. A technical way of saying, I'm going to use everything I've got. But there's also a second factor. In ancient times, when cats were more wild, cat than house cat, Sick or elderly animals would move away from the territory to draw away predators. This was to avoid being a burden and to help their own, preventing the spread of disease or slowing the group down. Everything discussed helps you understand more deeply why they behave. It's part of their nature, a strange way of saying you are one of their own. Whether they draw closer or pull away, it stems from that biological need to protect, to inform, and in turn to express their loyalty. Pain is overwhelming, confusing, and conflicting. When a cat is afraid, she runs straight to her protector, which will always be you. But when she is certain of things, she moves away to look out for you. You just have to know how to tell the difference. Specialists explain that sudden, intense attachment to the cat, combined with restlessness or vocalization, often indicates uncontrolled pain, which should always be evaluated by a vet. But the attachment itself, that isn't desperation, that is trust. You have all had similar experiences with a cat you've owned. Or if not, it's something that eventually happens. She visits every family member, one by one, on her last day. She walks to her favorite spot on the windowsill that she hadn't visited in months. Or after days of barely moving, she suddenly gets up, eats dinner, purrs, and seems completely normal for an hour. And then she's gone. This is known as the last rally. It's a pattern that can look different every time. But it begins with a sudden burst of energy. This isn't just a random occurrence. In 2023, a group of researchers catalogued 114 of these accounts from owners and veterinarians to find this answer. One veterinarian even noted that it wasn't uncommon to be called to put a cat down, only to be greeted at the door by an animal alert and active. A team led by Jimo Borjigan at the University of Michigan discovered that when the brain loses oxygen during cardiac arrest, it doesn't simply shut off. Instead, it produces a surge of organized gamma wave activity in the posterior cortex. They found that in humans, this is a final burst of neural coherence as the brain tries one last time to restore balance. The same thing likely happens to cats. It might be something in nature, it might be biological. The point is that cats use their last ounce of energy to eat what they want. You offer them to look at your face one more time and to reaffirm their bond. Both things can be true at the same time. The explanation can be science and the meaning can be real. This is the hardest moment, the one anyone would fear, but it doesn't have to be bad and it doesn't have to be traumatic. If you're carrying guilt over a situation like this, keep watching. Some people make the decision, one that is never easy and always painful, to choose euthanasia for their pet. This is not a bad thing. In fact, when there are no other decisions left, it might be the kindest act. A single dose essentially flips a switch, turning off the brain and the system, specifically the consciousness. Of course, it's a more complex process. The animal loses brain activity about 52 seconds after the injection, falling into a deep sleep where they don't actually feel the moment they lose consciousness. This was proven in 2015 by a team at UC Davis led by Monica Ailman. And yes, it's known that following those minutes, there may be movements, reactions, or twitches that seem like they are suffering. But that isn't the case. It is merely a muscular reaction. They are already gone. They aren't suffering. The heart can continue to beat for up to 16 minutes afterward, but you have nothing to worry about. They passed in the most peaceful way possible. The process isn't traumatic during or before the injection either. For them, things work differently. They don't perceive that something good or bad is being done to them. In fact, at the Free University in Berlin, they monitored over 40% of euthanasia in pets. They found that stress markers remained low at all times, whether the owner was present or not, and whether they were at home or at the vet. The concept of euthanasia simply has no meaning to them. But here is what did matter, and this is the part you should remember. As discussed before, fMRI research by Gregory Burns at Emory University showed that the caudate nucleus activates more strongly at the scent of a familiar owner than at any other stimulus. Not food, not other cats, you, and that activation happens even when the owner isn't visible. The scent alone is enough. What this means is that in those final seconds of consciousness, if you are there, your scent, your voice, and your hand on their fur are registered in the part of your cat's brain associated with safety and reward. You are the last good thing they experience, not the pain, not the fear. The science on this is not ambiguous. Your presence is the greatest gift you can give them, and if that brings you any comfort, hold on to it. Because it's real, and then comes the hardest part, grief. Anyone who has ever had a pet knows this is more than just a passing feeling. It's something that demands respect. For many people, the loss of a cat can be incredibly distressing. For some, it is exactly like losing a human loved one. Grief and the reaction to it are different for everyone. But it isn't an isolated case, nor is it merely subjective. In 2016, the journal PLOS One published an article from Maynooth University in Ireland, led by Philip Hyland, where he evaluated 975 people who had lost a pet, using clinical techniques for prolonged grief disorder. The results were striking. 5% met all the diagnostic criteria, while a national survey by the RSPCA found that 75% of pet owners begin grieving before the animal even passes away. They call this anticipatory grief. Furthermore, less than 7% felt that the people around them took their pain seriously. More than half hid how they were truly feeling. Psychologists call this disenfranchised grief. The pain that society tells you isn't valid, but your brain doesn't care what society says. Researchers from Harvard and Massachusetts General Hospital scanned the brains of mothers looking at photos of their own children and their own cats. The core emotional network, the amygdala, the orbitofrontal cortex, the dorsal pituitary gland, activated in both cases. The attachment circuit doesn't check the species. It responds to the bond. As discussed through this series, the relationship between a cat and their person is written in stress hormones, heart rate patterns, and even the gut bacteria you literally share from living together. When that bond is broken, grief isn't just sentimental. It's your nervous system registering the loss of a biological companion whose body was synchronized with yours. And that deserves to be honored, not minimized. So, here's what the science actually says when you put all of it together. A cat does not fear death. They do not lie in dread. They do not count the hours. What they carry, instead, is something that every brain scan confirms. A neurological portrait of you, stored in their reward circuits, that activates every time they catch your scent or hear your voice. You are not just their owner. You are their favorite experience. That's not poetry. That's data. And the life you gave them, the play, the couch time, the mornings, the way you said their name, all of it built a welfare history that veterinary science would classify as good. Not because every day was perfect, but because the balance was overwhelmingly positive. You gave them that. If you're in this moment now, or if it's coming, be there. Your presence matters, down to the neurochemistry. And if it already happened and you're still carrying the weight of it, know this. It is the biologically accurate, proportional cost of having been someone's entire world and having them be part of yours. If this video reached you at the right time, or it helped you understand something, let me know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe for more insights into your cat's life, and I'll see you next time.